Welcome. This is the DNX Show. We're here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. My name's Todd Ryan. I'm one of your hosts. There's two of us. Yeah, you look around, you'd think, is there? It's myself and Josh Reason. Josh, well, we'll see if he comes rolling in today. We're going to talk about a lot of, various domain investing topics. You can check them out at dnxshow.com. That's just a site we have set up in case you want to see some of the topics that are on the agenda, as Arif said. Arif joining us on stage today, and David from Panama, good friend David Roth is here. We're going to get rolling. Arif already touched on it, and that was over the last couple days. We saw Spaceship. Apparently, people would go to or want to check out when they're buying a domain name, and they see there was an additional 5% added on for the buyer to pay, meaning it was a buyer fee, a buyer commission. So you click to buy a name for 5,000, it added 2,500 bucks and said buyer commission. As we all know, as the sellers, there's a 5% seller commission. So basically, they were raising their commissions to 10%. And Arif, you mentioned you thought it was likely that they were going to raise commissions, and we all, I think a lot of people mentioned it here in the crowd. A lot of domain investors thought, yeah, they're going to keep it at 5% probably for some time, but they're going to eventually probably want to squeeze a little bit more out of it. I don't think it just had to do with them being bought out by this private equity firm. But so tell us about, so I was going to ask Josh, I don't know actually how they unraveled it, but Richard Kirkendall said, I guess there's still going to be a 10% commission, but they're not going to have the buyer pay. Is that how it's going down? Arif, how do you understand what's going on over at Spaceship?
Well, it seems that with the backlash, they're changing what's happening. But yeah, I mean, again, I think a bit of the issue was the communications or their lack of. But on the other side of things, again, like with Spaceship, I've saved thousands of dollars with transferring.com to them over the last couple of years at least, and so they're not making money off of the domains. Most registrars, especially large ones, I'm guessing like the Namecheap half of the Namecheap Spaceship combination, they're a little bit more expensive for the pricing. But over at Spaceship, they're not making any money off of domainers. So it's like at a certain point, again, like obviously I want as cheap prices as possible, but there has to be some sort of profit made somewhere. And I'd rather them do what they tried to do there, which was charge the buyers an extra 5%. And again, the A/B testing results really mattered here. Like, did it really affect sales or not? In an ideal world, I mean, the less commissions we have to pay, the better. And 5% added extra, I mean, it's like a tax, right? 5% difference. I don't think it'll make too much of a difference. Obviously, it will make some difference, but at least there's sticker shock isn't there initially. They'll have a little extra there, but once it's already in the cart, it's a domain they want. At 5%, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those weird things where it's like, yeah, the A/B testing matters, but it's less money out of our pockets, and really, they have to make their money somewhere. That's what makes me nervous with some of these companies. Is like Unstoppable too. Hey, shout out to Unstoppable. I've probably saved about almost $10,000 through transferring stuff there with their promotions, right? But at a certain point, they were really good with the communications, and saying that those super discounted prices are ending at the end of the month. So kudos to them for informing us. But at a certain point, like these companies, they need to at least break even, right? So I don't know. I'll let other people talk on that, but it's not surprising at all. They got to make some money somewhere, and if it's not with the domains, then commissions is probably where it's at. And in fairness, I 10%, I think is still it's pretty good. 15% is Afternic is without all the extra bells and whistles of Afternic, they have the syndication. So yeah, I can see it being a little bit more. They've probably spent a little bit more on advertising, whatever it is, and that's I think 15%. I think in this industry is like it's okay. It's when it starts getting above that, like with Afternic charging an extra 5% for boost. And what really bothers me with Afternic is the 10% extra if you don't use their landers. That to me I find is quite there's problems with that. But anyhow, I'll let you ramble on a bit. But that's where it's at. So they've basically charged the 5% extra to the customer, and then that they roll that back. I think within 24 hours. So it kind of, I think they just buckled to the pressure. But it's too bad because now they're going to charge us 10%. So like, what difference does it make? I don't know why people were upset.
Well, they said they didn't see much change in or much effect in this commission being added, but it was for just a day or two. So yeah, we don't expect them to be able to see really
Yeah.
much of an effect. So, welcome, Josh. What's going on? Let's check your mic, see if everything's cool.
What's up, man? Yeah, all good.
Nice. Well, I don't know if you've had a chance, probably not yet, but anyway, at the website dnxshow.com, I have listed a lot of the topics, not all of them that I wanted to touch on, but Arif started talking about the very first one. I want to ask you, and then I want to ask David, who's here, David Roth from Panama, basically the overall conversation about commission. So now Spaceship, Josh, they added the 5% buyer's commission, which made the total 10%. Richard said they're taking that away because basically there was an uproar, but it's still going to be a 10% commission. I guess now it's just a flat 10% to the seller that the buyer doesn't see. But two questions, Josh. What do you think? Was it a mistake the way they rolled it out? I think I know your answer there. And then the overall fee of 10%, the overall sort of topic of a 10% commission. Did you sort of know it was going there? Do you think that's a fair amount for Spaceship to charge? What do you think about the situation they got themselves into?
Yeah, I don't think they've got themselves into much of a situation, to be honest. Anyone who was plugged in knew that the 5% commission was going up. That was always the case. That was never a secret. Richard himself said multiple times that the commission wouldn't stay at 5%. 10% is a more than fair commission. Spaceship and Namecheap have a network of buyers and are one of the biggest registrars in their own right. I think that they have a pretty good stronghold on particularly alternative TLDs. I think they do well with founders and indie hackers, especially in that like sub 10K range for names. So yeah, long story short, I think 10% is more than fair. Everyone agrees, including them, that the way they rolled it out was not ideal. To put it nicely, the buyer fee was not a clever idea. They probably should have, if they wanted to experiment with that, they probably should have just experimented with that with their own portfolio. That is what Aftermarket do when they typically experiment. They will experiment with find names. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty much.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh, do you know how many domains they own as a registrar, or the two together?
Well, that's a loaded question because how these companies are all divided up and they have different entities and they're technically not associated with each other, but as individuals, the individuals that are very strongly associated with Namecheap and Spaceship, Richard and other people that I won't mention their names because they're less well known, have a very large portfolio. And again, it's no secret, right? The .ai names that they've been reporting for many years are owned by one of these entities. So, yeah.
Yeah, good question, Arif. And yeah, Josh, I understand. Like I said, some of these, they're sort of silent partners, meaning less well known. People don't know, and if they don't want to go public, sure not for somebody else to out them. Hey, David, thanks again for joining us. And I wanted to say you've been around in the domain space a long time. 10% commission. Does that seem reasonable to you? And what did I can't remember your take on, people, some folks are just, the GoDaddy commission seems too high. It can go from 15, 20, 25, 30. What's your take on marketplaces, the commission that's out there? Do you feel like it's fair? And do you feel the 10% is fair from Spaceship as compared to, Dynadot and GoDaddy, so on?
As Josh said, hi Josh, it seems more than fair. I have sold names at Spaceship. The moment a price is accepted, their sales team takes over the communication. They start talking to the buyer. They are on top of them to send the money. They keep you up to date. And payment, the longest payment that I have had to wait for a domain sale was one that sold Friday at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Saturday at 10:30 a.m. the funds were in my account in New York. Other domains I have gotten payment within 4, 5, 7 hours. I would say that I moved my entire portfolio from GoDaddy to Spaceship. From other registrars, I probably have under 100 names left at GoDaddy. And the only thing that I believe with Spaceship is that what they are missing is a search bar. Because people that end by typing traffic coming to a domain at Spaceship, that's it. They came in through that domain. But other than if you want to register a domain and the domain is listed and it's going to show up in your registration pass that the .com is listed for X amount of money, I think that they are missing a search bar to be able to populate and see all names that are on Seller Hub. And I think that that would increase substantially the amount of sales. Because if people are looking for names and they can see names that are right there at Spaceship, that they can open an account and the domain gets moved, I don't know, the minute the money comes and they do KYC, the name, it's in their account within under an hour. So I'm very happy with the support and the people at Spaceship. I'm really happy. And I don't mind paying 10%. I would pay 10% the whole day to sell domains to Spaceship.
Seems like a lot of folks are transferring names out of GoDaddy. See, I hear that more from our community than, it's always the new folks that end up getting introduced to domains through GoDaddy, but bigger portfolios, I'm hearing people like yourself, David, transfer out. I know Arif's transferred out. Do you think, Josh, do you think Spaceship is making a pretty big impact? Spaceship and Namecheap together, they seem to be growing. A pretty big impact with regards to taking business away from GoDaddy, or does GoDaddy, excuse me, you think GoDaddy really doesn't feel the pressure of these other registrars? It's just, doing business. I guess I'm wondering, does GoDaddy, Dynadot's always been growing. I like Pork Bun as a registrar. Unstoppable's trying to get more and more names under management. Are these other registrars finally starting to affect, GoDaddy's business model at all, do you think?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I really don't. I really don't think so, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that the large majority of portfolio sellers have their names on Afternic, and I think Afternic performs incredibly well. I do think that having options and competition in the market are good. Cedo, people used to say that Cedo was a competitor to GoDaddy, and they've fallen off completely. GoDaddy and Afternic kind of just keeps chugging along. Yeah, man. Like we can talk about all these people coming up. Our Spaceship is by far the best and closest to competing with GoDaddy, and it's good. It's good that they're providing, some innovative solutions that maybe make GoDaddy think twice about certain things. But I honestly, I don't think GoDaddy are worried at all. I
I mean,
see so much of the aftermarket, man, and yeah, I mean, they crush it. They absolutely crush it. And it's not just small sales anymore as well. They're doing huge sales. Um, the amount of six-figure sales that they're doing, almost daily, is astonishing. Yeah, I mean, they're a powerhouse brand, man, and they've spent tens and tens of millions of dollars over the years in order for them to have the network effect that they have. So yeah, I mean, you're comparing David and Goliath, really, when you're looking at almost anyone. But yeah, I mean, Spaceship and Namecheap are doing incredible things. They, especially when it comes to like new registrations, which is not the same as aftermarket, right? By any means, like, don't get that confused. Just because Spaceship and Namecheap have do very, very well when it comes to new registrations, you've got to look at the audience, and you've got to and like how they perform in the aftermarket is not the same as the Afternic network. Having said that, I have all of my names on Spaceship as well, and I get sales through Spaceship as well. Nowhere near as much as I do on GoDaddy, but I get solid sales through Spaceship. I've tested out their landers. They have a great product, and if they keep building the way that they're building, they'll keep improving. Um, so I think they move quicker and they're more nimble than Afternic. And if you want to judge things by a delta and how and who's improving the quickest, then Spaceship and Namecheap almost certainly take that crown. So the gap is getting closer. It's not widening.
yeah.
Well,
So when it comes to
Spaceship started in August 2023. It's less than 2.5 years, and they are already up to over 5 million domains. So I really think that for the time they are in business, having over 5 million domains, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think that they've got 5 million domains? It's because Namecheap has been one of the biggest brands and second biggest registrar, basically, to GoDaddy for a long time, and Namecheap's prices are not cheap. So, and
yeah,
that's not an accident. The whole purpose of that is so that they can push this uh, alternative brand, which was Spaceship. So, um, yeah, it's not a phenomenon as to why they've had so many registrations in such a short period of time.
yeah, and I think a lot of that is domain investors because of the pricing, right? But ultimately, again, what we talked about before, even we started the show here a little bit ago, going live before we turned it on, Todd. I mean, like, part of it is just the simple fact that there is not much of a profit margin on domain investors when it comes to actual domains, right? It's the other services that's going to matter. Meaning here we're talking about the aftermarket, right? They get a commission. Before, they weren't even getting that. 5% is like we're barely covering the credit card fees and then the infrastructure and staff and all that stuff. Now at 10, it gets a little bit more reasonable. And the secondary thing as well is also the expiration stream, right? I mean, my domains I let expire, even my work, the quote unquote, the ones I'm letting go, there's still a sizable amount that, after 30 something days, Spaceship, takes my portfolio, and I'm kind of fine with that now that I understand how it works. It used to be when they started off, that also was a little bit of a weird happening, because sometimes it happened for me as early as like 18 days and 15 days and whatever it was. But now it seems to be pretty consistent on day 37 or 38 after expiration, which for me is like, okay, as long as I know what it is, I whenever I want to renew, I make sure I do it way before that. And that's, again, I understand it's part of how they make some money. So it's not for domain investors, it's not in the domains. And so, again, my worry a little bit is for Spaceship specifically, how many of those 5 million domains are from domainers? If it's mostly domainers, that means that their profit margin is not really much, if anything at all. Namecheap, yes. Namecheap, it's probably different clients. So not only are they charging a little bit more per domain, which is, sizable when they have, I think they have like 25 million domains at Namecheap or something like that. So they make a markup on that, but also that clientele is also getting like email purchases, like email plan purchases and hosting plan purchases. It's probably not the same percentage as at GoDaddy, but certainly something. And that's where the money is in the end, right? Like, I mean, for GoDaddy, the fact I'm transferring stuff to Spaceship, like they don't really care that much because like I'm still have my stuff listed at Afternic. You have to have your stuff listed at Afternic as a domain investor because they have the distribution. That's the thing. Like ultimately, what I would love to see is something like Namecheap and Spaceship and getting together with maybe like a Dynadot and a couple other registrars and buying out Cedo and then getting a syndication there. But even then, like there's no syndication system that could ever compete with GoDaddy unless GoDaddy actually opens their doors to another syndicator other than Afternic. And I don't know that's ever going to happen. That's one of those weird things as an industry where, you guys don't like it when I say, anti-competitive, this and that, and where things are positioned. But, it is what it is. We got to figure out how to get our distribution. That's the most important thing, and visibility.
Anti-competitive.
Well, I mean,
what is that like? Tell me, what does that mean to you? Anti-competitive.
Well, I mean, obviously, competition is better, right? But I mean, if we have competition to Afternic, it really is almost meaningless because unless GoDaddy, like the registrar, opens the doors and puts the other syndicators' domains into their search results, like what does it matter? Like Cedo is never going to compete with Afternic unless Cedo's names show up in GoDaddy search because GoDaddy represents what, like half of all internet buyers of domains. It's one of those things. It's just our industry is too small for there to be regulation and that kind of stuff, I think.
Hey, before we get into that, yeah, I've always argued with Arif about that, but only because I'm like, people that want to get in this business, come on in. It's just not a great business to be in. And first of all, GoDaddy, that stock fucking thing, I had 5,000 shares from the IPO, and this last year lost everything. I mean, it's unbelievable that it's such a strong company. What they should have done is just fired all sorts of people a year ago. They were letting off people, but they really aren't even now doing right by their shareholders, let alone by domain investors. But I wanted to ask Larry. Thanks for joining us, Larry, and thanks for being on stage, all you guys, Arif and David, along with me and Josh. This is an open discussion. We're going to talk for a couple hours today, so thanks for being here. But Larry, what comment or question did you have? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you for the space, of course. And well, this may be an anomaly to me, but every day I check my Spaceship account. I have all my 600 names there, and I look at the page views and the views and so forth to get an idea of what people are looking at. Now, usually the way they do it, it's the previous day's results. So I have a pretty good idea of who to send to send out some emails or to call. But yesterday, when everything got changed, I noticed that the amount of names that people looked at and the amount of page views and so forth were way down, like out of the ordinary. I was wondering if anybody else had that same thing yesterday. If you check today, your whatever you have there, I would love to know if you see like less hits and so forth, because that's what I noticed today. Something changed. I hope that they eventually go to giving us a white label. That would be really helpful to sell names. Hopefully they'll do that.
I don't use their landers for anything. You guys use their landers
Everybody
at all?
checking? I'm using everything that I have there is their landers.
Yeah. No. Any other guys? Josh, Arif, you guys notice any downtick in visits on your Spaceship landers?
Unfortunately, I don't really check that.
Yeah.
So I can't really say. I mean, it could be also just if they've if they've changed the structure around with the percentages, it could just be also just a short-term SEO adjustment. They change the pages, sometimes that would happen, but I'm just guessing.
Well, getting back to the topic of, GoDaddy dominating everything. Well, they spent all their money. They spent so much money early on marketing. Anyone can be a registrar. I want to ask you, Josh, becoming a registrar over at DNX, are you finding a lot of resistance? It seemed like Unstoppable had some because they were unclear maybe in their application about how they were going to incorporate or uh, I guess, integrate the Web3 bullshit that they were doing, and that concerned ICANN. But do you find any resistance, getting your registrar agreement or, getting approved to be an accredited registrar?
Like from like a political
No, I
standpoint,
mean
or
from
like
ICANN, meaning, so do people, if
no,
somebody
no.
wants to be a registrar,
They're a little like they can be a little slow, but uh, and yeah, I mean, like the application process is not easy at all. Um, we contracted a consultant to help us with our application, and it wasn't cheap, because yeah, like I said, it's difficult. There's a lot of things that you have to do, and we're approved now, and there's still a bunch of things that we have to do. And it's a long process. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of moving parts, and it costs a lot of money. So, um, yeah, I mean, I can see why people would think it's difficult, and maybe it's going to be harder for some than it is for others. I would say that I'm pretty well connected in the space, so it's probably easier for me than it might have been for a Web3 company that's kind of dipping their toes into Web2 domains. But yeah.
well, I wanted to talk about those some sales that I saw. The Namecheap, basically Spaceship, announced yesterday that Surface.ai for 110K, Enclave.ai for 100K, Climb.ai for 100K, Mila.ai 95K, Demi.ai 67,500. But so that's, and they unload, or they announce these sales. I guess they publish them. I don't know if it's once a week, once every 2 weeks, but anything surprising there, Josh? I mean, it seems like it's chugging along. I mean, they're selling some of their names, but it's from that portfolio, I believe. Their private portfolio. How are the .ai selling out of your portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, AI is crazy hot. I think that the Namecheap guys price on the lower side compared to the market now, but they do so because their entry is so low. Um, I mean, a lot of these names they basically got for reg fee. Um, so when they're selling them for 100K, like Surface.ai, it's incredible for them, and they've got to take those offers. I think that for people getting into the market now, you probably have to pay 25K for Surface.ai, and selling it for 100 might not seem that good. Um, but for them, it's a slightly different situation. So I think for the most part, when I see them report sales, and I'm not the only one, um, I think a lot of people look at it and say, some of those names are slightly undersold.
Do any of you guys take a look at NameBio regularly for sales data, just to see what drop catch sales names for? Of course, GoDaddy's on there. I see Tricks, TRICKZ.com, sold on Atom for 7K. I had so many names that ended with Z, dropped a lot of them. My wife didn't like them. But Josh, do you look at NameBio frequently or not at all? How much?
I don't look at NameBio very often. DNX has whatever the ultimate plan is at NameBio, so you know, I will check things out from time to time. We do use NameBio uh, for a few things uh, related to like reporting and data collection and whatnot. But I personally, from an investment standpoint, don't check it as much as I used to. I mean, most people know that I used to check it every day, and then I used to actually do a 15, 20-minute podcast on sales that were that happened the day before. So I do think it's a very good exercise when you're not massively plugged in or experienced in the space. Um, but for me, I'm like again, I would say slightly privileged because I'm very plugged in, and I'm seeing um, for me and my portfolio more relevant data. And what I mean by more relevant is I'm seeing a lot more end user action. Um, that is basically the only thing that I'm interested in from my portfolio.
Arif, is that a tool you use at all? NameBio.
Just gonna say that was a great podcast you had there, Josh, back in those days. Well, back in the days, it's about 3 years ago, whatever it was. Really good, really informative. I think it was helpful to a lot of people. I'm in the same boat as Josh. I mean, I really think that people, as they're getting into this industry, really need to study the numbers. I mean, Ron Jackson, obviously great. I think Domain Shane also, they post the results of some of the names they list the day after. And NameBio also, it's all these tools are there, and when you're starting off, you really need to understand what sells and what doesn't sell and what price ranges are there. But after a certain point, you develop your gut and your gut check, and I don't really relate to that anymore. So I have to say I don't really use it, but it's not because I don't think it's needed. I think it's a really important tool, especially for people starting out. So I don't want to say I'm not using it, but say I don't need to use it. I think everybody should inform themselves and educate themselves on what's going on. And after a certain amount of time, you'll get a better idea, and you'll be more unique with your portfolio, and you'll know what works for you as opposed to everybody else. That's where you really start to make gains in this industry, when you really start to figure out your own niche and what works and what doesn't work within that niche. Because what works for me, it's not necessarily going to work for Josh or for you, and vice versa.
Yeah, I like the quiet here. Hey, any Josh, have you registered any .ad names? I know it's a weird question, but .ad, have you heard of that? Have you ever registered any .ad names?
I haven't. No, I have not. I think about the furthest I've gone down that super obscure rabbit hole is probably .id. Other than that, no .ads for me.
Yeah, I had three, and I'm probably not going to renew. But what do you think of want ad? Want.ad, want ad.
One ad. I mean, yeah, kind of cool if you want to get creative. Not so cool if you're trying to sell domains.
You're right. No, that's fucking right on too. Some some of these extensions, you can't help it. You love them. I mean, you love coming up with a hack, and then you realize it might and if I really was, for me, if I was going to work on something, turning it into a company, to a business, I certainly wouldn't do anything not on a .com. I just wouldn't do it unless I owned the .com. So we own paydirect.ai and paydirect.com. So it's fun to say, we have a product on paydirect.ai if we did, but I would only do it with the .com. So yeah, the three I have. I always get Sportsbook in almost any extension before if I can get them real cheap when it first comes out, because I think, yeah, Sportsbook, that's right. But I do own sportsbookx.com. I always liked. You were talking about StockX the other day, how
Yeah.
you really like that website. Tell us a little bit about it. One, because I want to, we're going to talk a lot of domain investing topics, but I love the alternate ways of alternate opportunities of investing out there. But what do you tell us about StockX and how you use that website, stockx.com?
Yeah, I like StockX. It's really cool app. I mean, there's a lot of other things going on around it related to the market that it serves, which is primarily apparel, like streetwear, sneaker market, obviously sneaker market predominantly. So there was quite they basically act as the third party, but the reason why they're so uh, reason why they've had so much success was because they were essentially an authentication platform. So seller sends in their sneakers to StockX. StockX verifies them as authentic and then sends it to the buyer. So it protects the buyer from buying fake shoes and other apparel, and when you like all these hyped items of clothing like end up getting faked and from China and whatnot. So it served that market really well. But the reason why I like it is because the way that it works, I could see a domain marketplace working exactly the same way, and just the way that their app works on your phone is it's just very intuitive. You wouldn't ever have to like list. You wouldn't ever have to have like domain listings. You would just have the ability. You would just have every single possible domain combination in there, and um, and then a buyer can make an offer for whatever domain. Literally, could be anything. And if the seller of the domain wants to check and see what like the high bid is for a domain that they own, they could go in there and just look at it and say, oh, there's someone currently willing to pay 500K for my domain, and they could just go in there and hit accept and sell the name without ever listing it. Um, I would love to see a domain marketplace work in that manner. So I don't know, might be something I look into doing myself.
Well, and then if it's available to register, of course, once you have a registrar, then you can just send them down that path, right? Um,
Right, exactly,
I mean, it just
exactly.
seems, no, it sounds, I think people like that whole idea of somebody's out there. It's like a want to buy. If somebody wants to buy a certain thing, and you're right, you didn't have it listed, but a lot of people will sell definitely jackets and shoes. They'll sell their homes without even having them listed. So, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I like the idea of building domain products that are app first, like mobile first apps, and then maybe build like the desktop version of the app after. I just feel like you know this is not secret, but year over year, people are just being way more plugged into their phones than their PCs, even from a work standpoint. So I do think that so a lot of the things that we're kind of focused on for the future from DNX standpoint is kind of like a mobile first strategy for reaching end users, which I don't really see out there. But I do think it's going to be important.
Yeah, this is an open discussion. Anybody want to come up, raise your hand or whatever, I'll bring you up. But yeah, Josh, there's been a lot of companies that have basically doing things. Atom is doing some new stuff. Unstoppable came around, but there's really no um, new products. Meaning they're trying to improve on old stuff, improve on appraising stuff, give you a better price on registering and transferring. And incorporating AI, but really the domain space, in my opinion, yeah, there's nothing that's been really new, exciting. What you're talking about, and now I'm just learning about it today, so I'm thinking out loud, is yeah, that sounds interesting to have where people can make offers on really any name, and then if you're an owner of something, right, and you keep it clean, it's just domain names, but an owner of that name goes and checks it out and sees, okay, so there is a solid offer. Um, I mean, that's definitely.
Part of the reason why it's cool as well on StockX is that if I bid on an item where I mean you can list for sale as well, but if I bid on an item where there are no listings, maybe I bid $1,000 for a pair of shoes that are rare and like don't there are no listings out there. and an owner of those shoes can just go look at the high bid, see my bid, accept the bid, um, and the transaction is automatically processed, right? I've got there's a pre-authorization, so there's no like payment issues uh, afterwards either. And it's interesting because that's one of the things that I think the Web3 folk are trying to trying to solve for, is like this ability to uh, have, well, almost like a trustless transaction. They want to use the blockchain to do it, but um, but you know, actually, to a certain degree, you don't even need the blockchain. You can just have pre-authorized transactions, um, and then charge them when it gets accepted. Um, so I mean, like what StockX have done, I've seen like that exact playbook from so many like Web3 marketplace type things, like trying to do exactly that, but in the blockchain. I it to me, like as a user of StockX, it makes me feel like, again, you know, Web3 is more of a hurdle um than it is a solution.
I'm wondering how. I mean, so they authorize. How long is you make an offer for $1,000 for a jacket? How long is your
Yeah,
offer good for?
you can choose how long. You can
Okay.
choose how long you want the authorization in place for, but the standard is 30 days.
No, interesting. I mean,
And I
that's
can cancel it at any point as well. But if it gets accepted and it goes through, I can't cancel it then. I could call my bank and try and do a chargeback, but then you're just going down a rabbit hole of small instances that are not going to be reoccurring issues, particularly if a customer wants to use the platform more than once.
I'm sure too. Then the platform supplies the seller, the one who received the money, who also received that chargeback, to say, here, this will assist you in fighting that chargeback, because that's happening more and
Yeah,
more too.
yeah.
Saying
Yeah,
people,
I mean, like, and you know a little bit about payments as well. I mean, there are companies out there now that are like specialized in chargeback guarantees. So, so that you are protected as a marketplace when you're taking payments. GoDaddy will take credit card payments in up to uh, $500,000, more $600,000. They did a credit card deal on a buy it now sale for 600,000 the other day. Um, so, there is no limit.
hey Ish, what's up?
That's awesome,
Hold on.
man.
Here, if I was to go to Ish and then go to Ragu. Ish, what's going on? What comment? I'm sure you're familiar with StockX, but what comment did you have?
Yeah, I love StockX. I've been a sneakerhead all my adult life, and StockX is one of those platforms that has made that a smoother process, like like Josh said, for QA and other reasons. But no, I was trying to circle back to your comment about the lack of innovation in the space, and I just respectfully disagree. I think there are a lot of people building really cool stuff. Beneath the surface. And like, for example, yesterday I spent lunch with Fred at D3, and I was super impressed with the operation here in downtown LA. 40 employees trying to work on adding more liquidity for domain names. That's intentional. That takes effort. It takes time. They've raised a significant amount of money for that. Domora in Switzerland, they're working on fractionalization. They're moving the needle, getting close to $1 million worth of transaction volume. Unstoppable, of course. You guys are familiar with them because they're embedded in the trenches. But there are a lot of people doing cool stuff. Shout out to appraise.net. I think they're probably the best appraisal tool that we've seen so far, in my opinion. And I think that um,
One sec. Did I say that there were no there was no
No,
innovation
no, no,
It
happening,
no,
was
or
no.
was it
me.
someone
Todd
else?
said
It
that.
was
Todd
me.
said
But
that.
Oh,
before Ish, your audio was going down a little bit. But Ish, yeah, I will say to separate that one, I'll say that one area. So you're right. D3 Domora, we know they're tokenizing names. That's basically it. They're putting names on the blockchain, and then they will fractionalize and they tell you all these features. So you're right. That is the area of the Web3 where it certainly is innovative to domain names. It's to me, it's like it hasn't jumped off yet because to me,
Yeah, innovation takes
there's no
time. It takes.
salespeople over any of these fucking places. Okay, they're trying, yeah, they try to get you at Domera to help sell, but it's a you can build all
No,
sorts
they're
of
not
stuff.
trying to get me to help sell.
Well, well, well
I just naturally like the blockchain. I'm an advocate for the blockchain, and I think that my dream is to see the application of the blockchain with domain names. I feel like it just takes it to a different level. But I do think that there's a lot of innovation going on. Appraise.net is another example. DNX is another example. But I think there are a lot of people that have tried to innovate in this space and get frustrated because it can be a little cliquish. It's kind of like an echo chamber. And, there's always that thing of adoption where it's like it takes time. But overall, domains are just such a difficult asset class. I just found out from the AI.com sale that more people refer to them as website names than domain names. So you go figure.
yeah. I could talk a little bit to that as well because it's a good point. There's no shortage of people that have tried many things in the domain space, and they've been trying it for a long time. This isn't new. That people are trying to do innovative things. It's a newer concept to be doing it on the blockchain, but people have been trying to do all kinds of things in the domain space since the early 2000s. Uh, and most of the time it was unsuccessful, and you don't even hear about it anymore. And I'm sure Shane's been here around for a while, so I'm sure he can come and kind of speak more to this. But one of the reasons why, and I've kind of learning this from a first-hand experience as well, is that there are a lot of things that would be very cool in principle, um, but are not necessarily wanted in practice. Um, and I really can't say it much simpler than that. In that, I think that as a builder, you really have to like think about things from a usability standpoint, and there's just a lot of cool things that, like I said, in principle would be so cool to do, but practically there isn't much demand to do it. And what you hope as a builder, and I can definitely say that D3 and Demora, they're probably thinking this way. What you hope is that you can build what you believe to be a strong product in principle, and then hope that the demand for it catches up to you at the right time. um, but it's a risk, and I would say that more often than not, unless you know something behind the scenes and you're really plugged in, um, these things never really catch on. But yeah, I mean, that's the challenge.
just to be respectful, I'm glad Shane is joining us too. But we'll go to Ragu, then to Michael, then to Shane. And so, Ragu, what comment question did you have? And then we'll go to Michael and then to Shane. Thanks for joining us, guys. Ragu, I threw it to you. So 3, 2, 1. All right, Michael, what's going on?
How you doing, guys? I'm similar to everybody with what's going on in the group here as well. I'm not in it long. I'm only in it just over a year now. And to be honest with you, I've been with all the I've tried all these registers. And to be honest, the only sales that I'm getting is directly from messages from like, who is this person's trying to contact you? Like, I'd have some pretty cool brandable domains, like really, really good. But I've been on Afternic, I've been on Spaceship, I've been on all them. And the only sales, as I said, that I've made was when you're getting an email from who is saying this person from GoDaddy Brokers or something is trying to make contact or something, you know? But I just want to get back to a point you said about a different type of registrar. I came from a different industry, and I was just thinking, like, in a register game like this, why doesn't somebody come up with a register basically where, let's say, there's two people, there's a sale going down, and somebody wants to buy your domain off you, but they're sort of they can't afford, let's say, 500,000, but they say like, well, I'll give you the domain worth 300,000, and I'll give you 250 in cash, like a swap. It's no way you can sort of swap, trade in one and take and pay cash for it. And I can't understand why this industry hasn't done that yet.
Josh, what do you think about that? Hey, I'll buy the name. I'm going to give you this name plus some cash. So why is that not happening? Or do you think it's even, something to...
I think it's a brilliant idea. Like, because you think, let's say you had a domain that was worth 500, and I wanted that domain, but I hadn't. Let's say I wasn't cash rich because all my money was in domains, and I'd say to you then, okay, your domain's worth 500. I'll give you one worth 300 and 250 in cash.
Okay, but you can do this in a one-on-one basis anytime. No, I mean, are you looking at this feature on the marketplaces? I'm just trying to
Yeah,
get this
it'd be
straight.
great.
Yeah.
It'd be great if one register. Like, the problem in this game is, from what I think is, there's no.
Dan, you could make a deal on the Dan before, right? Not an Afternic, but yes,
No,
you could.
you couldn't trade one domain for the other plus cash and Dan. And I think the problem, the answer to your question is really what it comes down to is the commission, right? So a platform, unless they can assign a real value to the domain you're trading, it's gonna be hard to figure out what to do with the commission there. There's certainly something that could be done, but it does complicate.
It's not just commission. Nobody wants your crappy domains. They just want you to buy our crappy domains.
That too, yeah, that too. But again, because also we have to agree upon the value, and yeah, so it complicates things significantly.
Let me say quickly,
But that's where the
Michael,
problem is in this game, because nobody can actually give you a value. Like one will say it's worth 100,000, another will say it's worth 10, another will say it's worth 25. Like, so what is the value? How do you get the value? I can't understand that.
Well, it would
That's
be
the
it would be
beauty
the
of
buyer.
domains.
Hold on for a second, because I want to go to Shane in a second. So we about that topic we were just touching on. But Michael, there's a company, say like Domain Capital. These guys have a big portfolio of domain names. They love buying domain names, but they love loaning out on names. So that's an example. It's more of an individual in agreement, meaning they would say, hey, yeah, we're interested in your name. We'll say it's, we're going to tell you what we're willing to buy it for. So they're going to, it's always going to be the buyer. Like in that case, they're going to tell you, we value that name at 10 grand. So we'll give you 10 grand for that name. And if you want to put that 10 grand towards, credit towards one of the names in our portfolio, because you found one in their portfolio, they have a great portfolio, then yeah, somebody would, there are, I'd say, entities that will do something like that. Because they're out there aggressively or still buying names, and they're also selling names. So anybody that buys and sells, I know Drew at Media Options, if you had a name that he liked, he's going to buy it. And then if you say, well, I want this one from your portfolio, all right, well, let's work something out. You give me that, I'm giving you 20 grand credit, and then you wanted to buy this from me for 60 grand, so you owe me 40. So there are entities that are willing to do that. But as a registrar, I think Arif's onto something there, that there's too much. These are individual deals, and there's probably too much involved to, I don't know how the terms of service would go on when people are trading stuff in. So let's go, before we leave that topic, Shane, thanks for joining us. Josh was talking about, innovative stuff, and listen, always a bunch of innovative stuff going on, or people trying, creating new stuff. But my take was, we still, run, you'll know this analogy, run the same way. We put on shoes. There's always sort of new things that people try, this gel or try these new shoes, but basically we still use the same equipment we used 25 years ago. As domain investors use the same tools that they use. We buy names at registrars, we sell them on marketplaces. Builders, they're using all sorts of new tools with AI. So that space is certainly innovative, but what was your take on the innovation in the domain space?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this, and first of all, thanks for having me on. You guys always do a great job, so I appreciate being up here and having a voice. But I think I've said this a million times. I think we don't even do everything well, right? I can't. There's so many things in just the general process and the most basic concepts of logging in and navigating the site and listing names. We do a terrible job in the industry. We have terrible user interfaces. We just don't do a good job. So we're trying to innovate, but we can't even get the basics right across the board. And then, I'm not going to complain about everybody, but even like Adam, they're doing a lot of things, but now it's getting complicated. I look like a flight controller on my interface now because there's so many things going on. So I think the problem is just innovation needs to start with simplicity and making sure we have everything right. Like just general APIs and tools, we don't do a very good job of handing those out. And you say, well, most people don't know what to do with APIs, but they're going to be. I think there's probably a future of a registrar that has no user interface. It's just APIs and you manage it on your own computer. So I see the innovation coming more through self-management rather than user interfaces because they're just not doing a good job. So people will say, "Hey, I'm not going to even try and do a good job. I'm just going to give you the APIs, and you can manage everything yourself safely at home." And then I'll say one more thing. Josh made a great point about StockX. I've been StockX literally from the first week they started. Where they have an advantage is on this buy offer or sell offers, we have an item that's its own item, right? So we know there's sneakers, we know there's 14 sizes, we know exact model. Domain names, every single one is unique. So it makes it a lot more difficult to have a marketplace because everything is unique and it's a one of one situation. And that works well in a jacket, maybe sometimes, but even that, there's 1,000 of that jacket in different sizes. So we really can't do a StockX type marketplace because of our asset behind it. I don't think there's really much innovation overall. Honestly, I think the most innovative thing I saw is probably domain agents, the ability to bid on any name and they do the contact. That's actually a really good idea, and it's actually worked pretty well behind the scenes that people don't understand or see it very often. But it's pretty, I remember Adam talking about it, I don't know how many, a decade ago, where he told me, I'm going to create something that anybody can bid on any name and I'm going to get in contact with the people. And to me, that's one of the more innovative things we've done lately. Blockchain, I won't go too far on. I think a lot of things work really well on Ledger. If you add credit cards or stable coins, and we can make the process pretty quickly when it comes to payment. In securing payment and assuring payment and instant movement. The registrars can do that pretty well. I'm not sure that a good registrar with a good credit card system can't pull off instantaneous transactions and not use blockchain. So I've kind of changed my mind on that. Um, Fractionalization, I don't think there's a lot of use case going forward. We don't gamble in the domain industry, so it's just not what we do. It doesn't translate well. So that's just kind of some overall thoughts, high level.
This API thing you're talking about, didn't Mike Seiger build something, nerve.io or something, which is supposed to do that?
That's the other side. Yeah, I mean, we're all going to do that. We're all going to have some kind of Claude bot that can use APIs and build something. I'm talking about the people that provide the APIs. They're out there, but it is tough to do it. You have to know people. It breaks constantly. Dynadot probably has the best API, but even that broke the other day where they throttled a little bit, and so we had to redo things. So yeah, I do think APIs are the future of a lot of things.
Can I just say one thing in regards to um, how you'd how you'd do a StockX type marketplace for domains? You wouldn't have any number of listings for any domain. You would just have the ability to make an offer on any domain for any combination. Um, so kind of like
But
what you're
Already
but
referring
isn't
already
to.
that
has
kind of
that.
about domain agents, kind of the same concept?
the same concept, but without the agents. I mean, you don't need someone in the middle to go and reach out to the owner of the domain.
Yeah, it's more
Like
peer to
you just,
peer. It's a
it's
peer to
just,
peer thing.
yeah, it's just you make an offer on that, and then you have the buyers checking. You have the sellers. If they decide they want to sell something, they know to go to whatever place in order to see what the bids are. I think that, yeah, I mean, again, like it's like what I'm talking about. Like in principle, it's great, right? I could build it, and functionally it could be great, but that's like 10% of the battle if you want to create a successful product and business. Maybe not even 10%, which is why it's so hard to gain any traction with these kind of things, even if they're great ideas.
Yeah, the other thing is, even if you had this giant, let's say 10% of the domain community say, I wish I had that, that's still such a small number.
Yeah, it wouldn't even. It's one of those things. Again, from my perspective, it wouldn't be for the domain community. Like, I think that one of the reasons why a lot of what we build suffers is because we're building it for the domain community. And, to be quite frank with you, we all suck.
Yeah, but this
We
is
all
also going
suck.
to get came to no end. You're going to have people making false bids on crap domains for which they own themselves.
No,
Shit
I
like
mean,
that.
but just to be clear, like when I say we all suck, we don't all suck, but we're playing a very different game than most people. Very, very different game. We're looking for an edge. We're trying to find undervalued assets, and aside from like registrations and brokering our names to end users, it's pretty hard to make money off domainers. Like we're the people that we're trying to make money off other people. It's very hard to make money off us.
No, Atom seems to be doing well. All these marketplaces seem to be making a lot
Right,
of
but
money.
that's what I'm saying.
All the
That
registrars.
they're
It
making
feels
commission
like
off
an
our, hold on. That's what I'm saying. They're making commission off of our end user sales. I wouldn't say they're making money off us. They're making money off our buyers.
They are unprofitable. Atom as a company is still unprofitable. So think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and we're not paying. We're not paying. Does anyone pay Adam? I don't think there's a single person in here that pays Adam.
You pay them for a lot of things, but anyway, that's irrelevant. What
But
I'm
we
trying to
don't.
say
No,
is,
no, 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 no. But it's not irrelevant. It's very relevant because we don't write a check to Adam ever.
oh, you're buying coins from them. You're getting stuff
I've never,
upgraded. You're promoting it.
I've never bought a single coin from them.
Yeah, you're lucky. They must be giving you some coins or whatever. You must be
No,
earning them through your
no,
business
no.
or
I have
whatever.
good names, and then the end users pay them when they buy my names. But
No, but even to list them, you have to pay them. You
now
might
you
not have
do.
to pay
But
them, but in
now
general,
you
no,
do.
no,
But
always, always.
you
Atom,
didn't used to have to. And Atom is an exception there. Ask Adam Strong.
Yeah, I mean, as an industry, we are really, really cheap, and I think it's almost by necessity, right? When most of us are starting out, especially those who weren't there in the earliest of days. I mean, we need to be scrappy, and every dollar matters here and there. I mean, look, I'm bouncing around different registrars because I'm saving money, right? They're giving us promotion. That it goes back to what we talked about at the start with Spaceship needing to increase their commissions because they certainly aren't making money off of domains, right? In fact, I moved stuff from GoDaddy to Spaceship to Unstoppable, whatever it is. Like that business is operating at a loss with me, right? I have a hosting account with GoDaddy that I use. It's a very small one. I pay a couple of dollars a year. That's like that averages out to like pennies per domain, right? They aren't making a profit off of myself and most of us who are doing the business as we should. So yeah, I agree with you totally, Josh. It's they need to find other places to be creative to make money. And I worry when there's too many players in this industry that are clearly not don't have a business model that's profitable. I mean, obviously it's fantastic for us, right? Like I mean, I've saved probably 5 figures this year bouncing around different registrars. But at the same time, it's like that money is lost to these companies, and like I want those services to be there in 3 years from now. And if they don't figure out how to make money off of us, then they're just not going to be there. And that kind of like it's
Can
like
I
great.
chime in? I
Yeah,
think you should stop worrying about how people operate their business. This is called these are standard marketing strategies. These are customer acquisition costs that they have factored in. They write them off. So this is
Well,
what they need to do to be relevant
hold on.
and
The
get market share.
auction money they're making. What are you talking about? I don't understand. These people are not making money. They're making from 50% if the auction are run by domainers and they are selling this expiry domain names. They're a lot of money, man. I don't understand what you're talking about. They are cheap, but they are making money.
yeah, but no, but they're not making money off of our renewals and transfers. That's what I'm saying. They have to make
No,
money
that's one
other
one
places like
part of
that,
your
like
domaining. That's
auctions.
one part of your domaining. You're doing
Exactly.
auction, you're doing closeouts, you're doing other things as well. Domainers are not just registering a $10 domain anymore.
Yeah, companies don't think in terms of, we're saving Arif money a couple of they're thinking about the lifetime value of having you in their ecosystem.
I
And
agree. But that's exactly what I'm saying. Is that it's not going to come from the renewals. They have to be creative and do these other things you're talking about. Every registrar is going to do something a little bit different. Some have a lot more positioning than others. Some can do stuff only with volume. There's a lot of ways to make money in this industry, but it's also it costs a lot just to hold the domain. So they have to find something.
Unstoppable is fully dedicated to domainers. I noticed the way they're providing a service and doing their business, they are totally dedicating to the domain investors. I noticed.
Oh
Yeah,
boy, they
I've
can't get
saved
something
this
past you.
year.
Hold on, Air, if I want to say something. That's why one of my jokes at ICA was, yeah, unprofitable domains. That's really not a bad thing. It's just saying, yeah, they're on their way up. Shane just said Adam not making money in Ragu. Hey, no, they got to be making money. They charge 30% commission. Yeah, there's a lot of engineers there. There's a lot of money spent on growth and marketing. So some employees, yeah, they're going home and their checks are clearing and they're making money, but it doesn't mean the whole company is making money. Brady's making money over
Okay, thanks
so
to AI, you watch. This engineer is going to be looking for a Uber job soon.
well, the
Sorry to
point the
say
point
that.
is
Sorry to say that.
these companies have big expenses and they're not always profitable. I will say, us talking about cheap domainers, it is true. Domainers are cheap, and I always felt like Paul Nix wanted to say that at the ICA meetups every year. Like, you guys are cheap. I didn't want to fucking deal with you. But we're such babies, he couldn't even say the truth to us that you guys are cheap. You're just flat out cheap. I almost was going to complain about I got free $500 from Unstoppable. It's fucking wonderful. $500. You just spend it like regular cash. It's unbelievable. But yet, I registered some names there and I started getting text messages like I've never gotten before when I've registered a domain name, even at anybody. So I don't know, they're selling my phone number or they're just sharing it or whatever. But I was just like, this is fucking terrible. But I'm complaining about free money. Then don't use the free money to register names there. So it's like even domainers will complain about free stuff. But yeah, domainers are cheap. A lot of these companies aren't making money. Ish, I want to ask you, and then I look forward to hearing Shane's follow up on this. And that is, okay, D3. Uh, I like Fred. I want to work with Fred and some things. Especially why there's still some money there. Okay, but they're not making money yet. All these employees, they're spending money, but but it's only it's understood. No one's mad at them. They're trying to make something there, trying to build something. So, Ish, where do you believe tokenization, the DOMA protocol, after having your conversation, with Fred? Where do you think that's going to be in 1 year from now? It's not too far off, but yet time for them to still make some moves or move the needle on the stuff that they've been doing the last 2 to 3 years now.
Yeah, I think they need to do a better job in educating people um, on what their roadmap is and what they're building. But after spending time with them yesterday, we spent about an hour during lunch. I I have more clarity on what they're building and their patience and how intense Fred is in terms of like his vision and going after it. And I think that inevitably people will realize that this is just about unlocking liquidity when you can demonstrate that over and over again. Because right now they're kind of like in a rollout. When it becomes more apparent, I think a lot of people would definitely adapt it. And when crypto blew up and they were giving away free money, people figured out how to get a wallet and participate, right? When people realized that other people were making money, they figured out a way to buy a Bored Ape. So a lot of people here that are kind of like anti-blockchain will realize, oh, I can make extra money by just, onboarding myself and learning how to utilize this phenomenal technology. So it's a matter of time. A year from now, I think they're going to be, more embedded in the space and people appreciate and understand what they're building.
Shane, what's your take on it? Do you think there's going to be registrars that come aboard? Because that's the only way I see domainers, tokenizing names is if they're forced to through their registrar or something like that. But where do you see a D3 DOMA protocol in a year?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I worked for them for half a year or more, and I worked every day with all these guys. And I'll say, Fred is incredibly intelligent. Their engineering team is probably as strong as anybody in the entire industry. Ender is a great man, a great thinker. Again, I can't say enough about the engineers. Michael, who's who's a founder as well, one of the smartest men I know. But one of the reasons I left is because there was no clear vision, in my opinion. And these are my opinions, of course. I think they can do anything they want. I know they can do anything they want. My job, I originally thought, was to kind of help guide what that was. I do have a lot of experience, a lot of thoughts about what could be done. I came from the NFT, as advisor to Arcade.xyz. I saw the whole NFT crypto market. And I worked with Ben Dow. I worked with all of them. So I saw what was possible, and just exchanging that asset out with domains, I thought was a really big thing. But tokenization was not it. I just don't feel that we have any desire as a domain industry. We want liquidity, but we also want the ability to sell domain names. And my feeling with tokenization, to get out of tokenization and to sell the name, you've pretty much given up the name. So I always felt that it was more towards a lending protocol. I really liked what we did with NFTs. I really think that people would be willing to make loans against a domain name, and I think that domainers would be willing to give you a small loan in hopes that you don't pay back the loan. And if you do pay the loan, you get pretty good interest rates. I always thought that's where tokenization would go, and would still work. And I still feel that way today. I still think it can be done on Ledger too, off of blockchain. But I think D3 will figure it out. I don't think tokenization is it, but I do think they have the team to do something great. Fred has proven that he has in the past, but he's going to have to prove it in the future now. Like, we don't live on what we did in the past because we're in a whole new world. So it's great for social proof to say what we've done and that we were great at something, but we got new players now. So you've got to be a new player. But he has a team to do it, and I have no doubt they have the intelligence and the smarts to do it. But with intelligence and smarts, Ish said it perfectly. I think my only job there was to communicate what we were trying to do in a common man's theme, in a way that people would understand, and they just don't do that very well. They haven't found that person to really be the person that can explain things well and why. So it'll be fine. They'll work it out. They have cash, like they said. They've raised a lot of money. They have smarts. They have engineering, and that's a big part of what it takes to be successful. So yeah, I think they're doing great, but tokenization, I don't get it, and I'm not going to pretend I'm smarter than someone else, but I'm pretty good at Josh and I have been pretty good at jumping on things that are good for making money. Wouldn't you agree, Josh? Like, we've pretty much caught everything that's lit fire over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I would say that's certainly the case. To be honest, I don't really talk about it that much, I guess, but I was definitely early on basically everything that's been popular over the last 5 years, and so was Shane. And what's crazy, actually, I don't want to talk too much more about this. I know Ish was very involved in NFTs too, but Shane and I were like got into the same stuff around the same time without ever like really even talking to each other. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Shane, and I think that, you know, being able to, you know, learn from the past is a big part of being able to predict the future. And if you can do that, um you can make a lot of money in the domain space as well. And I think that's why, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, Ish, Shane, and other people in the crowd are one of the reasons why we're good at domain investing, is because, you know, we see the future in a lot of ways. And yeah, I think that it's certainly an important skill.
So sorry to bother you guys again. I just want to ask a question. Could you just give me any advice on like which is the registers to go for? Because I'm lost in a maze. Like you go into one, but you have to point over this way. You have to point this that way. You have to, and it's like you're lost in a bloody maze. Like you're going in pointing namers there. You're going. It's actually pretty head wrecking, to be honest with you. Like, so is there any specific ones that you would advise? Like as I said, I do have really cool and really good premium domains. But like as I said, after Nick, Cedo, like I couldn't sell one on either of them. But and as I said, the only ones I sold is when I'm contacted by who is. So if anybody can give me a bit of advice, I'd be very grateful.
Well, how many domains do you have, and how do you sell them regularly, or?
About 500.
Okay.
But I only got into it last May. About last May was when I got into it.
Yeah, because I think most of us, you know, who don't do outbound, I'm talking about, most of our sales are through Afternic, right? And so you have your domains at Spaceship or GoDaddy and list them at Afternic. It doesn't really change too much. Registrar really, it's you know, you got to be a place that's reputable and offers good service. But other than that, you know, you just have to be careful to list your domains, list them at the right prices, make sure they're visible. You know, just that's the groundwork you got to do. It's easy for me to say I'm working on that. I've been behind on that. It's not always. It's often easier than done. But I have like 5,000 domains, right? So I have a lot more than you. But yeah, I wouldn't stress out too much about what registrar they're at. I would stress out about you know, listing them at Afternic, especially, and Cedo and Spaceship and whatever it is, and price them properly. That's the main thing you got to do.
And okay, that's what I don't understand. How do you know what to price them? Like, because one site like Atom will tell me the domain is worth 100 grand. GoDaddy will tell me it's worth 25. Somebody else will tell me it's worth 50. Saw will tell me it's 15. And then DN tells me a different price. Like this DN seems to be a good site as well, because I see them advertising a lot.
So here's the thing, Michael. Appraisals are always going to be subjective, and you also have to be very practical in terms of how you list and price your names. You know, there's always that, you know, owner bias where you like the one that shows you the highest amount of money. You know, the best way to kind of like gauge what to sell your names for is to study what names sell for. You know what I mean? And then apply your own IQ. And that's where people get separated. Some people just have that intuition, whether it's innate in them or from experience, to know what's likely to sell in terms of like pricing buckets. So if you're listening to any appraisal tool, you're definitely going to miss the mark all the time because they're very subjective, they're very flawed, and none of them are accurate. It's domains are not height and weight where it's like this is exactly what the price of this name is, right? If it was, then it would be the easiest business in the world. We'll just hand names and immediately sell them for what GoDaddy says they're worth. So disregard all the appraisal tools. They're just there to sort of like give you a guide. You know, but the way the most important thing also is you said you just started doing this, you have to be patient. Most people do not make money in their first year, and you assessing your names and saying, I have some amazing names is very alarming to me because no one has amazing names in their first year of domain investing. So
But I'd done marketing and I'd done a lot of
I could care
entertainment as
less.
well
I could
before
care
this.
less if you worked for GoDaddy. I'm being real with you right now. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are. It doesn't matter what your background is. There's a learning curve. Like I could be athletic and go to the gym every day. Doesn't mean I can play an NFL game. You got to work on your conditioning, right? Shane runs 20-mile marathons. I can't do the same thing, right? Just because I'm the same height and the same weight. So it takes time to develop the skills. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in.
Yeah, I knew Shane. Hold on, I knew Shane only ran 20-mile marathon. I knew he cut those 6 miles off, and why he
I
was
just
getting
not
such
just
good timing on
20
it.
mile plus, my
See, he
bad, my
that's
bad.
that's my running joke.
eh,
When I tell somebody I ran a marathon, they go, "Oh, really? How far was that one?"
Shane, I was going to say the jokes get stale after a fucking few people talk, but when you and Josh were talking about, knowing everything early on, I'm like, so you guys knew Sabrina Carpenter was going to be this worldwide thing 5 years. Okay, so Michael, let me ask Michael some questions. Michael, so what's the most you've spent on a domain name, and what domain name was that?
What's the most I spent on a domain name? I spent about what's the most? Not really. When it came down to domain names, like buying them over, like I'd be buying some like for um low money in auctions. I'd be buying some from closeout, but then I'd buy somewhere I'd go up to 6 or 7,000 on them and things like that. And then they'd be gone again, so they come in so let's say I have one on that, I have them
I'm
on
not.
at them,
Let's
or I
say I'm
have them
just asking you.
advertised.
You've been doing it a motherfucking year. Excuse my language. And Michael, I'm glad you're here. But I'm one of those guys who I've been doing it 25 years. I know everything that I've spent. I know my biggest sale and all that, because that's my next question for you. But I wanted to ask you, yeah, what's the most you've ever spent on a domain name? Because if you told Ish, as a matter of fact, I do have some good ones because I spent 1,500 on this. I spent 3,800 on this one. I spent 12,500 on this one. Then in your first year, you may have some great names in your portfolio. If you tell us you've only been hand registering names, then we're like, listen, we're all pretty slick at that too. But so, let me ask you a couple other questions. Forget that one. So you don't have the answer to that.
But
What's your biggest sale in this first year? Which is amazing that you'd have a sale at all, in my opinion. But what's your biggest sale this first
I've
year?
had five. I've had five of them.
Okay, what's the biggest sale you've
I've
had
had
this year?
five. I've done five. So the last one I done would have been last week. It was called Savvy.io, SAVEE.io. At them had a value that about 70 grand. I sold it for 6.
So you sold it for 6 grand, and they had it valued at 70 grand. Well, first of all, great name,
Yeah.
SAVEE. I guess it's like save with an extra E. Is that what it was? I mean, trying to figure this out.
Yeah. Say with an extra E. Like I've a brand of about like 76.ios there, and they're the highest brandable like names you could come. It'd be like Atma Moped. It's every one of them is
How many
English.
names do you have, Michael? How many names do you have in your portfolio?
You said about
I've
500.
about 500, but in one portfolio I've got like 76 or 76 or 80 .ios, but they're not normal .ios. They're all highly branded, like all English dictionary words, and like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters, but highly brandable.
Sure. Okay. No,
And then
congratulations. We have some
then
guys. Yeah. You have some
I
great
went out and bought
.ios,
stuff
right? I mean,
sorry.
you said you have some great .ios. You pick those up in the aftermarket. We know the renewal fees on those. Not bad. It's your first year anyway. But I mean, so did you
Yeah.
bought these .ios in the aftermarket between what, $50 and $500, or were you
Look,
hand registering these? What?
yeah, exactly. But I'd be buying them between 50, 500, 250, them type of prices,
Okay, and thanks for sharing, because a lot of people don't. We try to get to the nuts and bolts here, so we're like, okay. And if you're already selling names, we talk about in this space. Well, if you're pricing your names real low, and even apparently low, because people are coming and buying them, and you have a sell through rate. Say you had 500 names and you sold 10. We know that's a 2% sell through rate according to the gods in this business. That's a okay sell through rate, but then if you were selling names like they were flying off the shelves, then you can tell yourself, maybe I'm selling these things a little bit too low as a price. But then also you want to know, how much have you spent, right? If you spent a lot of money and you're selling some names, but you're still not, say, profitable, then the last thing I'll say about pricing, because you asked about that, is we talked about NameBio. It's a NameBio.com. You may have heard of it, but they have a lot of sales there
Yeah.
reported. Well, if you took, say, each week you took all the sales that were reported in a week, and that'd be thousands of sales, and then you threw out the top 25% and the bottom 25% just for the fuck of it, and then you take the middle 50%, then you're going to at least get rid of all these big sales that are probably end user sales and then the real low wholesale. So you're going to be right there in the middle. And then what you could do is you could start comparing, hey, I have names similar to these. I see what they're selling for. And that's what Arif was talking about. It gives you, it's not going to be completely accurate at all. Maybe something you don't even want to, live by, but it's going to give you some data, and you're going to think, okay, I can see what names like mine are selling for, and then it tells you, oh, that one sold at GoDaddy through an expired auction, that one sold at Dropcatch, and you start getting a feel for, okay, if I let this name expire and it went through this, Dropcatch services, this certain, process, what would it sell for in the open market? And that gives you, an idea. But we're all, obviously guessing. Now, I'm finished by saying, yeah, if you're somebody, so, you got a special gift for picking domain names, and then you're having success with extensions outside of .com, and we're talking about selling domains in other extensions other than .com, that's a specialty in its own. Because usually what I've found over the years, the names that sell that aren't .com really have to be almost single word, really mean something, even brandables like you're saying in a .io. Yeah, I've had success with that. So special, sort of a special gift. Did Darcy make it up?
Yeah,
Let's say.
it sounds like Michael, you're doing very well from where you
Well,
stated from.
like I always
Should
check
we
things like
move on?
before that.
Should we move on? Should we move on?
Yeah, Michael. Listen.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen.
And
Thanks for being here.
I'll
Go
point
ahead,
out one
Jay.
thing. It just goes across the board. Doing things well in our industry always starts with just having a lander that you can easily contact the person that's selling it. Every name has a lander. Everything has to be on Afternic, Spaceship maybe as well, but as many places to find that name. That's where it all starts. After that, it's a learning curve. But when you say that you're having trouble with landers and the marketplaces, that makes no sense to me. Just pick one. Has to be on Afternic, but you can put it on Atom, you can put it on Spaceship. But as long as it has a lander, DNX, it doesn't matter. As long as it has a lander, your experience and your pricing that's when it'll come through, and you'll decide whether you're doing a good job or not. It has nothing to do with the lander.
Like I've got a good four-letter.coms, like the NZWA. That's like the New Zealand Warm Blood Association, the Horse Association. So I pick up things like that where the four letters will, you'd be able to sell some really cool stuff. Like if you want to contact me, I'll give you a look. Like, but the .ios are highly brandable, and I was in another one of these groups there.
That's not a word. Not to interrupt you, but there's no such thing as highly brandable .ios. I promise you. There's no such thing. It's brandable, but there's no such thing as a highly brandable when it comes to .io. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
I understand.
Michael, it's like coming to a running club. This is all that we do, and you're a new guy, and you're telling us about something. We're like, this is what we do, but we totally, like it. Post your sales on X so we can see them, your buys. But about the four-letter, we're not even going to go down that road because, yeah, I've had 3,500 four-letter.com.
All new domain investors should price their names where they have a comfortable margin and go ahead and get picked off, right? Like if you undersell a couple names in the beginning, but you sold them at a comfortable margin that you feel comfortable with, it's okay to undersell. It gives you an idea of where your pricing is. You get some cash flow in. That's a great mistake to have, right? Is to have something that you're happy with the sale, but maybe undersold it. That's completely fine. That helps you learn. If you make no sales at all, you learn absolutely zero.
Yeah, it gives you
Well,
the momentum.
as I said,
Really
I've done a good few. I was in a group the other day, and a guy was looking to spend 300,000 on a certain. I said, I'll give you 100 domains, brandable domains, and this and that. I'll give you them for 300. And he was like, he thought I was joking. I would have gave him the 100 of them.
Okay, we're going to be here 20 more minutes, and then we're done for today. But yeah, it's still a lot of topics. DNXshow.com if you guys want to take a look. Hey, Josh, any general DNX announcements before because I like to do that at least each week. A lot's going on at DNX, but any general announcements you want to make, anything about the Discord, any sales that you mentioned on the Discord that you're willing to share here? Because I did tell people before you got here, they want to know some insights that they're not getting here on the recorded show. Go to your profile, join the Discord, and I noticed you did make some sales, but tell us any general DNX announcements.
I'm gonna save DNX announcements for the Discord. We do have a ton of stuff going on. I mean, I can tell you that Leanne, myself, Dave, and Lee, we're crushing it at the moment in terms of just like getting a lot of things done. The guys are working so hard. I mean, we have so many things in the pipeline that it's I've just got to remind myself to sometimes just take a step back, because we talked about a few of the things that we've got going on. I need to I'm trying to just slow down a little bit with the registrar side of things, because we have multiple things that we need to deploy over the next few weeks. Our brokerage platform that will be launching in conjunction with we'll probably start with Brooke over at Pro Broker and Media Options. And our brokerage system is, I went through the demo today, and it's so good. I think that people are going to love it. It's kind of really going to be the first super streamlined way to submit your names to the best brokers in the industry. And yeah, I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about our app called Magic Search that we have some people in the Discord testing at the moment. We've got 4 or 5 beta testers that are taking that for a spin and providing us feedback. It's largely going to be an end user focused tool. But yeah, that's pretty exciting. I mean, those are the 2 main things that I want to get deployed over the next month or so. In terms of like sales, yeah, I mean, again, I'm gonna hold off in terms of mentioning my sales. If you want to hear some of my sales, you can join the Discord. It's I'll come and talk about some sales from time to time. But that's what I got for you guys for now.
Yeah, can I say this? Thanks for building that Discord. That Discord is actually, in my opinion, the best place to kind of like catch on what's going on beneath the surface. I don't go as much as I should, but whenever I'm like, oh, let me. It's like there's a lot of noise on X, a lot of spamming on X, but it's more of a focus group. People are very sharing with the information. A lot of inspiration comes out of there. I went in there and I saw a 6-figure sale, and I was like, "Oh, should I have a similar name? Let me reprice it." So if you haven't signed up for Josh's Discord, you're doing yourself a disservice, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of alpha in there for sure. And man, Josh is killing it, man. Like this man is on fire.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. It's kind of you.
Sorry, where'd you get that Discord?
Don't let Ragu in the Discord, okay?
I think he was there at one point, but I'm not sure if he still is.
Yeah, Josh, I wanted to come, but I'm just afraid of you. That's the reason I'm not there.
You weren't afraid of me at NamesCon.
Oh yeah, because in person it's different story, man. This is the problem I have. I believe in
Oh, I want to hear this story. What's
feel,
that about?
feel and touch, feel and touch.
Well,
Whoa, too much
we'll stay away
information.
from that.
No, I'm just. I wanted to join the Discord, but I like it more voice based apps rather than typing. And listen, I like to listen or talk, but unless you have that feature there, then I'll join. Otherwise, no.
Speaking of that,
Yeah, don't let Ragu in and don't let Commander in. Commander will ruin your Discord, man.
Yeah.
Just giving you guys advice you didn't ask for.
Yeah. That's the best. That's smart advice right there. Commander, I'd see that guy's fuck that guy. All right, Ish, you did have a good space with Rick the other day, and the best thing that I like to hear is from Rick was keep everything in writing. There's no reason to speak to people. Ragu said he likes to speak to people. Ragu, I know I saw some phone calls. Man, I'm tired. This is enough for me speaking these friggin' podcasts. To speak to people, it's just it's never good, especially in business negotiations or anything business related. So always send back to people an email. I prefer all communication to be in writing. And you know what? You know who doesn't like that? Bullshitters. Bullshitters don't like that. They want to, and especially guys who think they're really good at sales, like they want to build rapport, and you're really cutting them off at the pass. They want to just, anyway. So I love doing that to folks. For there was a 10-year span of my life, I didn't talk to anybody. I know I sound like I talk a
Yeah,
lot, but
Todd,
yeah.
I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to ask this question to Rick. Whether you do a communication by typing or writing or talk. Okay. Next session, whenever you guys bring him back to, you should. Where was Josh when Rick
If
came to
someone
the
if
room?
someone seems like they're really nice and you have a good relationship with them and you know it's going to help you close the sale, of course, then you don't mind. Except I'm saying most people are bullshitters and they can't wait to they want to speak with you. And lawyers, you'll catch that if you guys have any interaction with lawyers your whole life. Lawyers love to lie on the phone. Okay, they in writing they're a whole different person. So just always know that lawyers, they want to speak too because they like to not have things documented. But I wanted to ask Shane. He said there was some pretty cool stuff that's going to be coming out today on Sherpa. We're only going to be here for another 5-10 minutes here in this room. So before we shut it down, Shane, give us a brief glimpse. We're not going to spoil anything. We want everybody to go to Domain Sherpa and check out the new episode. But you were mentioning some things about cool topics that are going to be on this week's episode. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, we changed the format up from doing the regular list and namejet list and all the little fun and games. We just talked domains, which I think people will find refreshing. And Drew's always got tons of great information, but we really had just good conversations about, the AI.com sale and the history of it. And just, again, really informative insider type discussions, which I think people will like. And on podcasts, that's what most of the time we listen is for that information, right? Guys kind of just shooting the shit off the cuff, but sharing some good gems in there. And I really think Sherpa was one of the better ones. And I'd like to see more of that format where we have, kind of like what we do here. We have some discussion topics and then we just kind of talk about them. And when you have people that are experienced and communicate well, it just makes for a good show. And that's what I thought we have will be on Thursday. So, again, I think it'll be worth a listen on that one. And I'd like to see more of that type of topic. And discussion and communication, like Ragu's saying, is really important to open up these floors and to talk. But when it comes to business, yeah, writing gets it started. And I think finishing it with a phone call is great. But when it comes to negotiation, you need to put some things down and then you close it with some good personal interaction. But when it comes to sharing good information, you do what you do on on the discords, and you lay it out there and everybody can read it at their own pace and when they want. And if you want to take it in further, then you can go to some personal conversations.
So NameJet's not going to jet anymore.
No, NameJet's great. We just, we're still going to always do that, but NameJet keeps the lights on. I mean, they don't pay for all the power, but I will say this, and I think we all agree, any of the companies that help support people sharing information, we're kind of losing that. They're really not spending like they used to be. And I, of course, I'm partial to that because of the DSAD thing, but in general, supporting good conversation still an important part of our industry.
Yeah, and actually, on that note, Michael, one thing I would suggest, the one thing that really helped me get started in this industry was the podcast. And you guys know my little dog Steamy. He passed away on Halloween, but prior to that, I would go out daily for hours and hours with him, and like the number of podcasts in this industry that I listened to and re-listened to was really, a big part of my early domain education. And especially when I started, really when I made the switch from domain collector to domain investor, it was around 2016 or so. Shane was one of the regulars back on the Domain Sherpa when Michael Seiger was hosting it. I'm truly grateful to him and the others who are staples on that, and also Andrew Allman's Domain Name Wire. Those two podcasts have been ongoing since I've been in this industry. Right? There's been others. Josh's was really good, but it was like only a couple of years, I think, at the most. And there's some other informative ones there. So like my number one suggestion to people starting out in the industry is get a dog who likes to walk, and then just absorb the information.
Oh,
Go
I'm
back,
willing to
listen
walk
to
with
it.
you anytime. Just I'll walk with you and we'll listen together. I'll just
Yeah,
hop over, come to
sounds good.
Montreal.
This is the first time in my life I'm behind on my podcast, but again, my little buddy's he's passed away, so it kind of sucks. But obviously, over the years I've built up enough of that gut check that Josh was kind of mentioning before too. Is that we don't really check the stuff, but when you're starting out, it's really important to inform yourself, because it's the type of industry where it's like a really horrible catch-22 in that once you've got enough sales under your belt, your gut check is great and you can really move forward. But until you do, it's tough, and you don't want to grow too fast without that information. So you're kind of stuck in this sort of limbo at first. But like, listen to those podcasts, look at the blogs and the places that show what sales are selling. Join Josh's Discord. There's some really, really great people in there. If you ask me, Josh, he's probably one of the most well-rounded and informed person in this industry today, who shares so much. Definitely follow him, and figure out what works for you, because everybody's portfolio is gonna be a little bit different. Don't take everything word for word. What works for somebody won't necessarily work for you, but get enough information that you can figure out what does and what doesn't. And as those sales come in, you can get your own gut check and your own sort of systems in place and grow from there. Like right now, like I'm really happy in this industry. I'm not, I still have my regular job, but when my leg gets back, I'll be back. I fractured my ankle, but I have my regular job, and it's a part-time thing, but I'm making good money from it. Profitable year after year after year. And it really is something I'm truly, truly thankful to sort of stumbled upon, and I'm really grateful to the people who gave the information when I started. So yeah, I'll stop that.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in following them podcasts. Are they on Twitter?
Listen, let me just say, there's really
YouTube.
Yeah, that's on YouTube. But he was talking about some of the blogs. Get great information from Shane's blog, DSAD. Okay, you can also, Elliot has a blog, domaininvesting.com, DNW.com. Andrew Alleman, great news there. Great, he'll have podcasts, he'll do interviews. Okay, so I've given you, there's three.
Yeah.
Domaingang.com, another cool blog. There's a lot of blogs. I will say about the, of course, Domain Sherpa. Usually every Thursday there's a show that comes out. It's on YouTube. You can go to ds.tv. But here on X, really Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now, Tuesday we do that law show, domain name law. I do it with a couple attorneys. It's, really reviewing domain disputes. So it's pretty limited to that, but we're consistent. Here on Thursdays, DNX Show, we try to just touch on a bunch of domain investing topics. Michael, you pretty much what we do today. There's so many folks in this crowd that are so experienced. And I mean, fucking, if you just heard from, I could go down any of the rows, but on the very first row, Adam and Dave right there, those two, King and Exodus from Askia, that's Rigo. A lot of these guys are who the fuck is talking when I'm talking? Oh, that was Samit. Yeah, hold on, Samit. Hold on. I would say Samit, he's one of the ones. He's on stage. But these guys, 25 years of experience. I see Kevin McKim down there, Mark Mojica, AI expert, but from IRA, and I'm just scrolling through real fast, but there's so much expertise and experience in the domain space, Oswin, and every once in a while, these guys will come up here and talk, so you never know. So on Saturdays, Ish has a room. Ish is right here on stage. Ish has a room Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So, I appreciate here on X, it's real easy. We all, Summit had a nice pop-up room the other day. I saw on his timeline. The point is, on X, the consistent Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, it's important when we're trying to keep it up, meaning just have rooms about domain investing, and then there's these pop-up rooms, but always room for more. Just wanted to say, Michael, seriously, we do appreciate you being here. Be one of us now, as domain investor, but you'll learn a lot from a lot of folks that you, like I said, down in the crowd that weren't speaking today, but there's a lot of experience in this space, and they come here on X. It's fun to, meet up. I was going to say one last thing to Josh. Looks like he already jumped down. Josh, are you around? Or are you down in the audience now? Probably had to take off. We're done. We always finish 5 minutes before the hour on Thursdays, 5 minutes before 3 p.m. So everybody, thanks for being here once again. Check out Isha's room on Saturday morning. That's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on X. And then we'll see you next Tuesday, the Law Show, and then, of course, next Thursday right here. Thanks for joining us,
I
everybody.
really appreciate that, guys. Nice to meet you all. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michael. And thanks, everybody who contributed today. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day wherever you're at. Take care.